What's going on, YouTube fam? Today we're actually going to revisit the basics because there's a lot of people that actually don't know the basics, and I kind of want to revisit this. So this is for all those people that actually don't really know aperture, shutter speed, ISO, and I really want to go in depth with it and kind of explain why things are the way they are in an extremely easy way to understand. So if you guys are into that or need that, stay tuned, and we're going to get started right after this intro sequence. Alright guys, so today is a special day. It's actually my birthday. Isn't that crazy? So yeah, today's my birthday. Happy birthday to me. Woo! Anyways, so we're going to start revisiting the basics. We're going to talk about aperture, shutter speed, and ISO, because the other day I was actually talking with my friend and she was explaining to me how she wanted to upgrade her camera and all this, but then I found out that she wasn't actually using it completely right, and she didn't understand that much. So I taught her a bunch of stuff about the basics of photography and videography. So I feel like there's a lot of you guys out there that actually don't know that you guys shoot in auto, or those vloggers, everybody on YouTube that don't actually know how to use their camera that well. They kind of just use it to use it, and it's not really that important to them, but it's really like super good to know because it can really help you with making the quality of video a lot better. So anyways, let's get started with that. And before we actually get started, let me know in the comments below, what is it that you guys are shooting on? What camera do you guys use? Do you guys use like a G7X? Are you vlogging on that? Or are you guys using like a 1DX2 like me? What camera are you guys running on? Or are you guys just using like an iPhone? Let me know in the comments below. And without any further ado, let's get started. The first thing we're going to talk about is the aperture. So aperture is the reason why your cameras are so expensive, or not the cameras, the lenses. The reason why your lenses are so expensive is because the aperture is actually like an eyeball. Like, it looks like this. Can you guys see? It's gonna be really like right here. No, camera, focus here. Okay, I'll just do it like this. It's gonna look like an oval. So this is an aperture ring. Why is that so hard? So this is an aperture ring. It's basically like a circle that opens and closes. So when you see those numbers, the f1.2, f2.8, f4.0, f3.5, those are the aperture numbers. So the smaller the number, so at 1.2, the wider the opening, and then the higher the number, so let's say 8.0, the smaller the opening. So it's kind of like an eyeball, because when your eyeball is exposed to a lot of light, it's gonna dim, it's gonna get smaller, it's gonna go whoop, because you want to control the light more. You want to not let as much light in. But then when you're in dark situations, your eyeball, your pupil, it dilates, or it opens up, and it really lets a lot of light in because you need to see more. So that's basically what the aperture is. So let's do it. For example, I have my light right here, and we're gonna use my hand as a focus. This is the whole isolation thing, the whole blurry background concept. So let's say we're at a 1.2 aperture, and there's not gonna be much in focus, and everything in the background is gonna be out of focus. So here we have my hand, focus please, and we have the light. So with this light here, you're not seeing much of the background. You don't see what else is there. Like, you're having a hard time seeing it because the light is like really blocking the way. But if I were to bring the light back here, you'd see so much more, even with my hand over here, because that's just the way the aperture works. It isolates things for you, because the more light comes in, the more isolation, the more that you have one thing in focus, the less things in focus you have. But when your aperture gets thinner, there's not as much light, so you can start seeing more things. So it's kind of like being blinded by a light. Like, it's the same thing, the same concept of aperture. You're being blinded by a light, and you can only see what's in front of you. The more that it closes, the more that you can see. Is that confusing? So let's break it down and make it just completely more simple. Aperture is like your eyeball. The lower the number, which is the wider the aperture, the bigger the hole, the more light comes in. And when you're being flashed with a beam of light, you can only see what's in front of you. So like when you open your eyes after getting your wisdom teeth taken out, you can only see your hands right in front of you. You don't see the room, all blurry, because it's just a flash of light, and you're like, wow, I just woke up, all I see is really lights beaming at me. Like when you see those movies where the people are like hospitalized, and then they're being rushed to the ER on the cart, and you see them like, all they see is the lights like whoosh, 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 whoosh. That's kind of like aperture, because you just open your eyes and all these lights are coming at your face, your eyes haven't adjusted yet, you have a really wide open aperture and all this light is coming into your eyes. And then you finally adjust and you stoop down to that 8.0, and then you can start seeing again. You can see everything in the room, everything's in focus. You're like, what, where am I? You know, that's what aperture is, and that's how you get the blurry background look. It's just what makes a lens so powerful, so expensive. So pretty much you're paying for light. That's why lenses are so expensive. But that's the breakdown of aperture. It might have been a little bit confusing at the beginning especially, but I hope you guys can understand what I was trying to say there. And I guess I can give you guys some examples of aperture. So here's a chart of aperture, whatever I find here. I can put it here for you guys. Yeah, so as you can see, one is going to be a lot more isolated, more blurry than the other, which is actually everything's in focus, you know? So that's what aperture does for you. That's how you create the blurry background look for any sit down and talk videos and anything macro close up. Yeah. Now we're going to talk about the shutter speed. Now the shutter speed, there's a lot of things to talk about, but it basically controls the amount of light. So how fast do you blink? So first you have the aperture is the eyeball, and the shutter speed is how fast you blink. So you can take a really super long blink and you know, like that's weird to do. And then that could be like a 1 second shutter speed, and then you have like 1/1000. That's like a super fast blink. I'm already blinking at that speed, you know. It's basically how fast you blink is the shutter speed, and the shutter speed is going to be the thing that takes the picture. Actually, it's how fast the shutter closes and opens again. That's how your picture is taken. So the faster the number, 1/2000th a second. That's super fast. 1 second is actually a really slow shutter speed, and you're gonna get a lot of blur from that. So if you are taking pictures, 1/60 is something that you do not want to pass. So like you don't want to go above 1/60th of a second. You don't want to go to 1/25th of a second. You don't want to go to 1 second. You don't want to go to 2 seconds. You can stoop down to 1/180th of a second, 1/100th of a second, 1/125th of a second. Those are okay because you won't get any blurry things unless you're trying to do long exposure. Then you go to those really super slow ones and you let whatever happen. But if you guys are taking a regular picture, try not to pass 1/60. When it comes to video, you want to keep your shutter speed at least double your frame rate. So if you're shooting at 24 frames per second, you want to keep it at 50. If you're shooting at 60 frames per second, you want to keep it at 1/125th, because this creates a blur, a cinematic blur look. And if you actually go below that and you're trying to slow down your footage, so let's say you're at 60 frames per second and you accidentally shot over 1/80th of a second, when you try to slow it down, it's going to be super choppy, and it's not going to look that good because, you know, choppy slow-mo is not good slow-mo. So you want to keep it at least at 1/125th of a second. Keep your shutter speed at least double your frame rate, and if you're trying to go for a really jittery look for your videos, stoop it down to a really super fast shutter speed, at least let's say 1/2000th of a second, because that creates like a really intense kind of feel to your video. It really like packs a punch. It's for any action shots, any intense things, any really fast moving objects and whatnot, if you're not trying to go for the cinematic look but a more action intense jittery look. So that's what shutter speed is gonna do for you. And it's, yeah, like I said, it's the blinking of your eyeball, the aperture, so how fast you take your picture. And the last thing in the basics is the ISO. So the ISO is something that you really want to avoid. So ISO is pretty much something that is used as a last resort. It's there if you need it, but it's something that you don't want to use. It's kind of like signing a deal with the devil. If you use too much of it, your footage is gonna get nasty. It creates this really noisy look, and it's not like a film grain thing. It's like noise. It's annoying. It gets in the way. It's tedious to deal with, so you only use it when you need to. So let's just say that you starting off and it's like 100 ISO, 200 ISO, 400 ISO, 800 ISO. Those are not too bad. And then you start jumping into 128,000 ISO, and your footage gets crazy dark, crazy like it just gets really bad. It just gets bad, like grainy, noisy, bad, and it's basically unusable footage. Well, it really depends on your camera. Some cameras can handle that, some cameras can't, but you know, ISO is something you really want to avoid. Don't use it. It's basically artificial light, pretty much. So like right now my ISO is at 500. You may not notice any noise, any grain or anything, but if you really look in the blacks, like right here or my hair, sometimes you might see some noise in there, like it's like jittering, and it's kind of annoying. It's not too bad right now because the ISO is not super high, but you really want to avoid using ISO. That's pretty much it. ISO, keep it to a minimum, keep it at 100. Do not set it to auto, keep it at 100. Only shoot it up if you need it. If the shutter speed can't go any lower, if the aperture can't go any lower, any wider, then you use ISO. Otherwise, don't use it. Don't touch it. It's bad. Bad for you. Don't do it. And a few more key points that I want to throw in here. You really want to shoot in RAW mode. So if you take any camera, it has RAW. And I want to let you guys know that RAW is the best thing for you because you can basically keep all the detail in your camera. See, when you're shooting in JPEG mode, what the camera is doing is it is compressing all the details from your photo to conserve space and allow for like a quick delivery. So if you're doing like snapshots for a newspaper, no editing needed, then I guess shooting JPEG is alright. But if you want to blow up something for a poster, if you want to do something like that, or keep all the details for coloring and you're going to go super detailed into editing, RAW is your best bet because it keeps all the detail, does zero compressing, and it'll give you what you need to keep all those details when you're handling the highlights, the shadows, the editing, and the colors. It's the best thing. It'll keep your photo high quality regardless of where you put it. So do not shoot in JPEG unless you're going for a quick delivery. Same thing goes for video. All eyes is the best bet if you want to keep all the detail, and IPB is basically the JPEG of video. So pretty much what happens is in a video you're actually taking individual pictures of each frame. So let's say each second you're taking 24 pictures if you're shooting at 24 frames per second. Now it all depends, are you shooting them all eye, which is raw pictures, or each individual frame, so that's 24 raw photos, or are you taking 24 JPEGs in 1 second? So that's kind of like the basic behind video, pretty much what video is. So motion picture. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys like this video, give it a thumbs up. I hope that this little basics can help you because I know there's so many people out there who actually don't really know shutter speed, aperture, ISO. Then there's a ton of you that actually do, but here is the basics for you guys. I kind of wanted to break it down, kind of get behind the obvious facts of it and kind of break down to you why it happens, what happens when you do it, and kind of where my mindset is at with it to help me think about what I want to do for my videos and photos. Kind of just want to share that with you. Drop me that comment below. Subscribe to the channel if you aren't already subscribed, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Stay awesome. Have an amazing morning, night, day, evening, wherever you're from, wherever you're watching from, whatever time, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. See you guys.